Hello brothers and sisters, thank you very much for watching and subscribers. I want to do another part about what I believe when seeds are ripe, plants and trees, the way it shows design and intelligence when they are distributed by a higher source, I believe, a God. But science, they want you to believe that these ingenious adaptations for plants and to disperse their seeds and fruits are evolved. They come from evolution. No, they couldn't have just evolved by themselves. They show a lot. They admit is ingenious designs and the way that ripe seeds are distributed to germinate, like flowers pollinate. They use bees and to do that, but it shows design in Genesis 1 verse 11. Then he commanded, this is God, the earth produce all kinds of plants, those that bear grain and those that bear fruit, and it was done. So the earth produced all kinds of plants, and God was pleased with that, what he saw. Everything passed and morning came. That was on the third day. God created all the plants, it says here, on the third day. For God, a day, is but 1,000 years, So, all plants God created. It didn't just evolve. And we read some examples of ingenious seed. Is it from the book Britannica? Brilliant ways seeds and fruits are dispersed, which I say show design. This in the sea, for instance, God uses the elements to disperse seeds. From the wind, from the water, and from fire, apart from animals. So it says this is to do with the sea, out to sea. Coastal plants are generally very tolerant of salt water, and some are adapted to using their watery habitat as a means of moving their seeds. The famous coconut is perhaps the most famous botanical seafarer. The thick coating, floating fruits are impermeable to water, so they're waterproof and are filled with nutrients to keep the embryo alive for months at sea. So can you believe it? The coconut can float months at sea on the water, and it's watertight to carry their nutrient to keep the embryo alive for months at sea. And that's why the plants have successfully colonized tropical islands around the world. Also, the mangrove species produce hardy propagules that can survive for up to a year in water. These long, narrow structures float upright and root rapidly when they encounter suitable substrates, allowing mangroves to shape shorelines, ecosystems worldwide. And then you've got the means of exploding the seeds when they're ripe, using the power of hydraulics, as it were. Incredibly, a number of plant species utilize explosive force to fling their seeds away. You can see, what do you call it, design. Many mistletoes have explosive fruits with sticky seeds. That is, mistletoes have explosive fruits with sticky seeds, hopefully to propel their offspring high into the neighbouring trees and get stuck there. The Sandbox Tree is very interesting, native to tropical America. It says this Sandbox Tree has exploding capsules that can launch seeds up to 100 meters, 330 feet away. Boy, with speeds of up to 70 meters per second, 160 miles an hour. That's very interesting. you can see it's designed by God, not just, it evolved from chance. So these seeds from Sandbox Tree, exploding capsules that launch their seeds 300 feet up to 300 feet, 330 feet and 160 miles an hour. People have been injured by the force of these seeds, and the sound of the explosion can be heard echoing through the forest. Also other types, as a squirting cucumber, which utilises build-up water pressure, in other words hydraulics. So man didn't do hydraulics, God did first. These squirting cucumbers utilise build-up water pressure to expel their seeds. See if there's a picture here. Yeah, there's a picture there of the squirting cucumber. When the seeds are ripe, they explode their seeds out. Other ones are ones that use fur and feathers, animals, in other words, to help their seeds. Some seeds and fruits are adapted to stick to fur or feathers or clothing to help them, that hitchhikers in other words of unsuspecting animals. Some seeds are adapted to stick to furs. When the animal finally frees itself to the clinging passenger, or the seed and fruit is usually far away from where it started, they usually have typically minute hooks, barbs, spines. While most of these are nothing more than irksome, some, such as foxtails, can be trapped in animals' ears or nose and injure the poor creature. The burdock, with its tiny hooked fruit, is said to have been the inspiration for Velcro. Can you believe that? See, God made it first. See, Velcro, he copied it from burdock. Just like hydraulics, God made it first. With the if man can do Velcro and it comes from a creator, who done this? You can see that God did it first. Some seeds are equipped with wings, equipped with parachutes or wings, gliders or helicopters. A diverse group of plants have been adapted for wind dispersal. For example, each tiny dandelion fruit has a feathery papyrus to help it catch a breeze. We know that famous, dandelion. Or a dreamer's wish. Maple whirlybirds are winged fruits called samaras that spin their way to new locations. And some seeds, like those of the jacaranda, are flutterers. So some, maple whirlybirds with wings, some wings gliders as well. So the jacaranda or flutterers have papery edges to help them disperse. This is a very interesting one that shows design from a creator. One of the most amazing examples of wind dispersal using the wind to disperse the seeds is seen in the Jarvan cucumber. Its seed has translucent or transparent aerodynamic gliders or wings that's about 5 inches across, quite big, 12 centimeters. I'll show you a little picture. This is the Jarvan cucumber seed. Look at the wings on that. Translucent or transparent wings. I mean, that couldn't have just evolved. So all these things. Let me read a scripture in Solomon, Book of Solomon's. In the Book of Solomon's, chapter 13, Solomon wrote, "This is about the foolishness of nature worship. Anyone who does not know God is simply foolish. Such people look at the good things around them and still fail to see the living God because of the intelligence and the design, and still fail to see the living God. They have studied the things he made, but they have not recognized the one who made them. Instead, they suppose that the gods who rule the world are fire, or wind, or storm, or the circling stars, or rushing water, or the heavenly bodies." People were delighted with the beauty of these things, that they thought they must be gods. But they should have realized that these things have a master that he is much greater than all of them. For he is the creator of the beauty, and he created them, the things around them. Since people are amazed at the power of these things and how they behave, they ought to learn from them that their maker is far more powerful. When we realize how vast and beautiful the creation is, we are learning about the creator at the same time. See, people, they study these things and they're in awe about, the power and the beauty, intelligence. And yet, instead of realizing it was all designed, they say they must be gods themselves. They must be like, they make lakes into gods, or the rivers, like River Ganges. They make mountains into gods, they make planets into gods, but they fail to see, they worship nature. Evolution, it's a lie. And God created these things. Like I said, if hydraulics are man-made, it takes a designer. But God did it first with a squirting cucumber and other things. He uses hydraulics. They copy from nature. They make, they use to make Velcro. They copied from nature. Let me show you a little video clip about these designs of seed distribution from Naturalist Outreach.
Really kind of precision dispersal in that you are attracting an animal to come and get the fruit and take it to another location. There's this trade-off in that you can't make too many of these fruits because each one takes so much work. So the same goes with the nuts. So if we look at this chestnut, it's much, much larger than the wind dispersed seeds that we looked at earlier. And that's because this nut is also packed with a lot of nutrients so that the tree has the best chance of growing. Some plants try and trick animals into dispersing their seeds for them without giving the animal anything in return. We call these kinds of seeds hitchhikers because they're getting a free ride from the animal without giving them anything back. They can also be sticky or have lots of little hooks all over them, then they function more like Velcro and get carried away wherever the animal goes, and eventually they'll drop off and leave their seeds behind somewhere where they can grow. So while hitchhiking seeds don't have to worry about putting all the energy into producing a fruit or a lot of nutrients into their seeds to attract animals to eat them, they have a trade-off because if an animal doesn't brush by the plant and get a seed stuck in its fur, then that seed doesn't have the opportunity to disperse. So it's extremely reliant on some animal walking by the plant and getting the seeds caught up in them. If this doesn't happen, there's no future for that seed. This whole time we've been talking about how seeds have to get away from their parent plant in order to get the water and sun and nutrients that they need to grow. But in the case of fire dispersal, the game changes a bit. So when there's a huge fire, all the adult trees that are living there get totally destroyed. So the environment becomes perfect for new seeds to grow. There's zero competition, and they have all the light and nutrients and water that they could possibly need. What the seeds really need to do in order to be successful in this environment is be able to wait until a giant fire comes to kill all the parent seeds and be ready so that when the fire comes, they can take full advantage of this opportunity. So the way that seeds dispersed by fire do this is by living in special cones. cones are what we call serotoninous cones. And while this isn't an example of a serotoninous cone, it is a good way to kind of visualize how these cones function. So in serotoninous cones, each of these individual scales is held together by a special resin, which is basically a fancy word for glue. When a huge fire comes through, the resin inside these cones is specially designed by the tree to only melt at the temperature of a fire that's hot enough to kill all the parent trees. So when that happens, when that fire comes through, it melts the resin on the cone and lets the seeds open up, the scales open up, and release all the seeds that they have inside. So these cones lie dormant, lie in wait for a big fire to come, and then the fire melts all of the resin on the scales, releasing the seeds at the perfect opportunity to take advantage of this new nutrient-rich, sunlight-rich, water-rich environment. But the important thing to keep in mind is...
I mean, can you believe that? Does that not show design? I mean, within cones, you know, the scales only are, you know, fall off when the fire reaches a certain temperature and the resin melts these scales off, and then the seeds are dispersed. You know, God is amazing, all these designs, you know. Water, wind, fire, animals, whatever, these are all designs. There are a variety of types of seed distribution when they're ripe to germinate, plants and trees, which help them get on their way. Like orchid seeds, for instance, are so light they float away like dust. Maple seeds, you know, what do you call it, have wings. I think that we remember that as a famous one. We see that a lot, and they flutter like helicopters in the wind. Dandelion seeds, they look like parachutes floating away. And milkweed seeds, both dandelion and milkweed seeds are equipped with parachutes that, you know, fly their seeds away, so hopefully they get germinated and grow. Seeds of the Chinese lantern are blown away like kites. As we said, coconuts float on water, and the squirting cucumber uses hydraulics, water pressure, to disperse the seeds. Let me show some pictures that I drew myself. Not very good, but give you an example. I said that some of my drawings I did, that I took a picture of, that I drew. Ingenious seed distribution. There's the ink cap fungus, which drops its spores when it's ripe. Then you've got the balsam. When their seeds are ripe, they explode and disperse the seeds. The poppy, it shakes in the winds, and the poppy seeds are distributed. The tiny seeds blown in the wind, the wind shakes it, and the poppy seeds fall out. This is the famous Sycamore Wings. Just like the maple, they have these wings which you know, rotate down like helicopter propellers in the wind, which help it move at a distance. The famous, what do you call it, dandelion, we know that, which is blown in the wind. They look like parachutes which can fly at quite a distance to the seeds. Let's see, this one here is Cyanthus. That's just an example. It springs. It uses a spring mechanism to launch their seeds when they're ripe. Old man's beard. They're not the actual size, but gives an example. It blown in a wind. The lime, which uses a sail, so if it falls in the river or whatever, the wind blows it. And last one, goosegrass, which sticks its seed on any passing animal or person. So you can see all these are designed, you know, not only plants but animals, everything around us are designed by an intelligent God in the heaven, a personal spiritual being, powerful, that made everything. There's no excuse. It couldn't have come by chance. They're just, you know, it's just, you can see. So please, you know, have a good think and study yourself and see that I'm not right. You do your own study and you know, please humble yourself to God and ask Him in prayer if it's not true that everything around you is He created. He will answer you and accept His Son Jesus Christ, because He died for our sins so we may gain forgiveness of sins and be able to approach God in prayer, and you will be accepted as a child of God. Anyway, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the video. Bless you. God bless you.